I want to zoom in for a minute on marketing. We have a really good friend. He's been on this podcast, Donna Miller. He speaks to our team, and we really like his framework of the story brand. And the whole idea of story brand is make sure that your customer is the hero of the story.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you go to business websites and you don't see any happy customers anywhere. You don't see success stories. You don't see, we call it social proof. And it's like, are you really serving humans? Or is this just an information page about all the features of your business?
Yeah.
How do we take the brand thing, mash it up with the story brand, Donna Miller stuff, and make sure that all that's coming to life in a way where the customer really is the hero, especially in marketing?
It's a really great question, because I think in a lot of ways, you got brand and marketing, right? In a lot of ways, marketing is more about the customer and brand is more about you. And it's the intersection of those two things that is where the magic is. So we're talking about emotional connection, right? When you're thinking of the marketing, you really do need to understand your customer and understand what are their internal motivations. What are their underlying motivations? You know what's really interesting is that emotion and motivation are derived from the same Latin word, movere, meaning to move. Emotion and motivation. And so we are motivated by our emotions. Emotions are the things that make us act. Not facts, not our conscious brain. It's our unconscious brain that's connected to emotion that makes us move, right? So you need to understand what are the underlying motivations for the customer. What are those things that really make them move, right? And so if you can understand that, then you understand. You start writing out. This is what matters to the customer. This is what matters to me. So I'm going to speak to what matters to them through the lens of what matters to me. And you start looking at it like that. And so when you talk about underlying motivations, we talk Enneagram all the time. I'm sure you talk about that.
No, we've had Ian Crone on the podcast. Yeah. I think his audience is pretty familiar with that at this point.
Yeah. And so think about it. Even on Enneagram, you figure out what number you are based on underlying motivations. Like that's where you decide what number you are, because that matters to us, right? I'm a 3 all the way. And so I'm an achiever. And for a 3, we always have to be winning. If I were speaking to an audience where there were a lot of 3s, in my ads, I would show how my product makes you win all the time. That's how I do. And I would do it through the lens of what I value and believe. Like I would speak through that lens and let them know, I'm going to help you look like you're a winner. Is it a 5, the analyzer?
Yeah, that's right.
So analyzer,
the investigator.
Yeah, the investigator. They always want to be the smartest one in the room. Like that's an underlying thing for them. They want to be the smartest one in the room. So you need to talk to that desire and say, "Oh, we're going to help you be the smartest one in the room." If 5s are the majority of your audience, talk to that underlying motivation. There are hundreds and hundreds of emotional motivators that make people move. And if you can talk to your customers enough to understand this is really what's going on under the surface of why they do what they do, and you can speak to that, then you can really grab a hold of their hearts. And then if you're speaking to them through the lens of your values and beliefs, over time, they're going to understand what you're about also. And again, I talked about how a brand and a customer, it's a human-to-human relationship. And so it's kind of like when you go to a party and you meet a human for the first time. Well, when a human meets a human, when they meet each other for the first time, you start talking and you realize, I really like this person. And you probably really like this person because y'all talk about things you have in common. And so when you can understand the underlying motivation for the customer and you understand the underlying values and beliefs for you, and you start having that conversation where those two things work together and you have a conversation because y'all have these common beliefs and these things that you like about each other, you can build that emotional relationship. And so I think story brand is a good framework for that also, because one of the first steps is to find what they want. You got to understand what they want and then what's holding them back. That speaks to their underlying motivation. If you can understand what's their underlying motivation, you can start talking to them about what matters to them, but be talking about it through the lens of what matters to you, because both those things have to be working.
I want you to talk about the way that you can practically figure out what they want, because I know there's seasons where I've guessed at this and I've guessed completely wrong.
Oh yeah.
And then I realized, I could just talk to our customers and ask them.
Really
Let's go back to Bobby, your mechanic buddy. He may be going, well, everyone that I service their car is on different levels of the Enneagram. It's not like they're just one number.
Yeah.
How do I take this broad group of people who have cars?
Yeah.
And we just say, okay, well, they're car owners. What do they want? He may know what they want and what they Actually, I would say he may know what they need.
Yeah.
Right? And this is where we get this mixed up sometimes.
Yeah.
Bobby knows what their car needs mechanically.
That's the facts.
But if we're not careful, we'll assume that their needs are the things that they perceive as their wants.
Yeah. And the wants are the emotion.
That's the emotion. So how does Bobby figure out what his customers want through actually having conversations with his customers? What questions do you ask? How do you start to distill this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it comes in all different ways, but that's it. You just talk to them. You know, a lot of times as business owners, it gets really hard to go out and just talk to the customer. But that's really all it takes. You can uncover so much by just asking why they do what they do. You know, I read a book once years ago, and it talked about the power of asking why over and over again to really find out the underlying thing. So in this book, it was written by Jim Signorelli. Oh, I don't remember.
Is it the Toyota way, where they ask why 5 times?
No, but it's the same. It's the same kind of concept.
But you're drilling deeper layers down, right?
Yeah,
okay, so why is that? So why is that?
Exactly.
And you keep going.
I mean, it's the same thing. So in this book, he talks about how he's talking about a detergent like Bleach Bright or something like that, right? Okay. And he asks the customer, why do you use Bleach Bright? And she says, well, because, I want my clothes to be clean. And he goes, okay, well, why do you want your clothes to be clean? Well, because I think it's important that I look good and my family looks good and everything smells good. Well, why does that matter? I don't know. I just, it's just nice having clean clothes. Well, why does that matter? And he kept going down. And in the end, he was like, well, why does that matter? She goes, because I want to look like a good mom. I just want to look like a good mom. And that was the underlying thing. It was like, oh, got it. And so then they take all the ads and they start speaking to that we're going to help you look like a good mom, and it's not like if Bleach Bright actually does do that, it's not manipulation.
Right.
This is how we make you win at life. We're here to lift you up. And so speak to that. That's what she really wants, is to look like a good mom. And so you just talk to people and just continue asking why. Why do you want your car fixed? Why does this matter to you? Why does this thing matter? And they might come down saying, when I go to the beach, I don't want my car to break down when I'm with my family.
Well, you got to keep pressing because oftentimes people that first answer, like if you said, why do you want your car fixed? They're going to go, because it's broken.
Yeah.
Okay, but why do you want it to run well? Well, just because I want it to, I don't know, I just want it to be fixed. Yeah, but I mean, why? Well, so I can drive to work. What do you do with your car? I drive to work. Oh, okay, well, what do you want to do on the way to work? I want to make sure that I don't break down on the side. I think most customers aren't thinking that deep about kind of those core emotions under what they want.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of Sherlock Holmes that you do to kind of pull that out of them.
It's true. And it's really difficult because you're asking their conscious brain to put words to an unconscious emotion. And those two are disconnected, and unconscious and the conscious brain are disconnected from each other. And so it is really hard. You have to figure out different ways to ask them the questions to find out the real thing. Like there another way that we start understanding what the customer's feeling is we'll put a sentence on a piece of paper and put that in front of them and say, can you read this and see if that's correct? And a lot of times they'll say, oh, no, it's not because blah, 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 blah.
Like what's an example of a sentence?
Like for Bobby's Automotive, I want my car to be fixed because I want my car to look awesome. You could write a sentence like that, right? And say, hey, I wrote this sentence down because I think this is what customers want. Can you tell me if that's true? And the customer can read it and be like, oh, that's not why I come here. It's because blah, 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 blah. And the magic is in the but, ... Everything after but. Because they're not thinking at that point. They're just reacting to a sentence. And so that's another thing that you can do to figure out what's really going on under the hood is get them to react to something. Because they're not thinking about the right answer. They're just saying what comes out naturally, and that's
you just said what's going on under the hood, and we're talking about bodies,
nice
mechanics. We can't get away from the dad jokes. We both got little ones.
I know. That's my core audience is the little ones. What am I supposed to do?
So you get to this point, your audience starts talking about you to their friends and family. Momentum grows. Your business starts to scale. You start hiring people, and you've got all this stuff kind of locked in, right? Mm-hmm. Then our job as leaders, I guess, becomes to make sure that everyone we hire knows these are our brand standards and this is how we say things, do things, and design things. I mean, we go from designing the standards to actually making sure we're shepherding them, we're stewarding them with the team. That's a whole process. Keeping 1,000 people here kind of on brand, and you've got all this creative energy and we're launching things all the time. So how do we keep the right processes in place, check in on this stuff without it being bureaucratic or micromanaging to the point that it can slow down creativity. So you mentioned the quarterly kind of closing of the brands. I imagine you are also having one-on-one meetings with your creative directors and checking in with them. Are you guys looking at all the art, looking at all the design? Is it kind of sometimes you do, sometimes you spot check? What's the right amount of oversight to keep all this stuff in check?
Yeah, and I want the team to be flexible and go. I don't want to be a micromanager on their designs, and they're super talented anyway, so I don't really need to be. But we do every once in a while have to stop and take a look. So we talked about audits before. I have a weekly meeting with my creative team, and we use an Envision board sometimes. And an Envision board is a place where you can just upload some of the designs. Like instead of printing stuff out, I do like physically printing things out, but for speed, sometimes we'll have an Envision board that we just keep, and we'll just keep adding stuff to it over time. So periodically, we just take a look at that board and see the most updated work and see if it's continuing on the path we had. We had a meeting a few weeks ago, and I talked about daring, personal, and exciting, right? I wrote those words on the board, and before looking at anything, I wrote those words on the board, and I said, "Hey guys, explain to me what you think daring feels like. Explain to me what you think personal looks like. Explain what you think exciting looks like." And it was fun because they got really passionate around what does that mean? How's that expressed in design? They got really excited about it. And we were writing down all these great phrases. The ad should look like this. It should feel like this. It's great. And I was like, excellent. And then we pulled up the Envision board and we took a look at it together. And I didn't say anything. The room looked at the board and said, "Oh, we're actually not making it look like everything we just said." And they figured that, like they uncovered that, and they started figuring out as a team, how can we go and make it feel like all these words we just said? How can we go do that? And so since then, they went to all these designs and started updating them to make it feel like what they were getting excited about. Because when you get into the day-to-day of doing the work, it's so easy to not take a step back and make sure that it expressing what you want. It has the passion that you really want. It's really easy to get there because you're just go. And like we talk about entrepreneurs, we do it like that. And so it was great for the team to uncover that. I didn't have to uncover it for them. They uncovered it, and they made a plan to go back and start making it great after that. And so, another thing that we do, you talked about in the future when you get more team members going, we actually started making videos of, like, I have a couple of videos of me talking about what our brand is. And so when we have new team members come on and they're onboarding, they watch these videos of what the brand is and how we express it. So right when they're coming in, they're getting an understanding, this is how we express the brand. And so it's just part of our onboarding process. So it's, at this point, it doesn't take any extra effort to get everybody to see it. It's just part of our process when people come in.